Loud. All right, good evening. Tonight, I am very happy to introduce you to Sherry Neal. And having followed her a little bit on social media, I know I'm going to learn a lot tonight, so I'm excited. I'm going to start off with my very quick introduction, which is how a lot of us know each other is by our social media taglines and introductions. And Sherry introduces herself as lawyer, librarian, mom, wife, reader, learner. She does specify, not necessarily in that order. And so, Sherry, you have a lot of hats, and we're looking forward to getting to know you a little bit better.
Thank you so much. I am happy to be here talking tonight about manga. I am Sherry, and I am a middle school librarian. I work at David T. Howard Middle School in Atlanta. And I am also a lawyer. I still help run a family law firm with my husband, although that is now my side gig, and my full-time job is being the middle school librarian, which I definitely prefer to being a lawyer. But I am here to talk about manga in the library. And I will preface all that by saying I'm not really a manga reader. I didn't know a lot about manga when I came to this. When I was doing my master's years back, I did read one manga in my YA literature class. And I thought it was fine. It's weird to read backwards, but I wanted to share a little bit about my experience about bringing this into my library and hope that it'll be helpful to others.
I
So,
think a lot of us are scared of it, right? Because we're not
yeah, for
familiar, we
sure.
weren't brought up with it. So, right with you.
So, I mean, the first question is like, why manga? For me, the big thing was student demand. I had a lot of students asking for it. And as I researched it and learned more about it, I realized that manga, one of the things that we can do when we're fulfilling student requests, they're coming to us and telling us what they want, but it also allows us to really support those asset-based dispositions that we're thinking about. Our school district is all about personalized learning, and we have kids who have real fluency in reading in this format, and having that available can encourage them to read more and help them to maybe develop fluency in some other literacy. So I was definitely thinking about that. I was thinking about visual literacy. We talk about that a lot with graphic novels, and manga is not really different. You just read it the other direction. And so really bringing in those things, and then it's just fun. It's cool to have some different genres in your library, and definitely if the students are asking for it, it's going to get them in the door to read it. So I think if you have students asking for manga, it's definitely worth looking into, thinking about adding to your collection.
I
So
think I think it gets a bad rap too, right?
it
Like
does.
the first manga I read was Magus of the Library, which blew my mind. It's a really good book, and it's advocacy about reading. And I'm like, this is not what I thought it was. Now, most of it's not like that, right? But there
Right.
are some out there that are just terrific reads.
Yes, I agree. And but as I was coming to this, like not a manga reader, I really had to do some due diligence and figure out what I'm going to add. Because one of the things that we do have to think about with manga is that it is a format, right? It's not a genre. There are a lot of different genres that can be presented in a manga format, and it is written for a really wide range of readers. And because it's something that's not American in origin, it's coming out of Japan and Korea largely. It's just something we're not as familiar with, how all the little subtypes of manga work and what's appropriate for different ages. So as I was digging in, picking, I mean, I definitely had kids asking for stuff, but kids will sometimes ask for things that aren't like appropriate for your library, right? We get asked all the time for, I'm middle school librarian, right? Kids come and ask me for like, I don't know, Colleen Hoover or something. I'm like, yeah, I don't have that in middle school library. Public library has it. you go to town, right? So manga, we have to be careful, but not knowing it, not being familiar with it, it was helpful to do some research. And I will make sure that we have shared out these slides so that everybody can access the links to everything. And I haven't tried the whole presenting with Canva and opening links. We'll give it a try, and maybe I can open some of these up and show everybody what we're looking at. The New York Public Library Guide was just a helpful little introduction to learn some of the terms with manga. So I put that on here. Really, the two big things that I found most helpful, though, were Manga Librarian and Manga in Libraries. And some of you, if you get School Library Journal, are probably already familiar with Manga in Libraries, even if you don't realize it, because the librarian who runs this page, and I don't think it is going to let me open the links. The librarian who runs this page now does a regular column in School Library Journal on manga. So one of the great things about the Manga in Libraries website is that she really knows manga, right? And she has lists that are divvied up by age group. So like these manga titles are appropriate for elementary school, these are appropriate for middle school, these are high school, these are beyond, right? And so it was really helpful to have those resources. Manga Librarian also has some stuff, and she has a great interview on the School Libraries United podcast that you can listen to. So using these resources, really tried to pull together a list of titles that would appeal to my my students. Like I said, now School Library Journal has a recurring column on manga, which is great. The ALA store has a book that's written by the Manga in Libraries librarian that you can buy. We'll see some graphics from that later. And then again, student requests. And I'm also happy to share with anyone who wants it a list of the books that I have in my collection that we ended up with deciding were appropriate for the middle school audience. The big thing to be aware of is that particularly in the Japanese manga, there are different standards for what's appropriate in terms of like nudity, basically. And so there's this thing called fan service. And I kind of think about it sometimes with like, you know, cheerleaders, like grown-up cheerleaders for football, professional football teams, right? Their costumes have a little bit of reveal to them, right? So there's this thing, fan service, that just means maybe you see a little butt cheek or something like that. But what you see depends on the type of manga, and it also depends on what age group it's for. So you know, it's one thing to have like a really short skirt in a middle school manga as fan service, and a total different one to have like full nudity like you might have in some of the manga that's for adults. So it's different. It's helpful to use these resources and help figure out what's going on with them. So once I kind of pick some titles, this is what my collection originally looks like. Here's my manga collection. There were a few checked out. I did have like the first couple of books of Witch Hat Atelier, which is pretty popular. And I had Howl's Moving Castle manga, and that was about it. And I actually used this photo as I was trying to build my collection to say, look, you know, we need more manga because kids are asking for it. And so I think the Witch Hat Atelier books I had bought just on a whim at a bookstore because they looked cool and I knew they were age appropriate. And then we had a few like the Daniel X manga series, which was all checked out. And then that little blue slim blue one is the Howl's Moving Castle, which is based on the, you know, the anime, which is where a lot of the manga comes from. So I found a few on Follett. But as I really got into looking for manga, I was like, wow, you know, these series are huge and it can get really expensive, right? And so I really wanted to focus on series where I felt like I could present my students with the full series, right? So I was looking for series that had fewer numbers, which meant that, you know, Naruto, which is super popular, I'm probably never going to have that in my library. I mean, I think it's up in like the 500s now, right? And I think you can jump into these and start reading anywhere, and certainly my kids do. But for our collection, I really wanted to focus on standalone volumes like the Love and Focus in the middle there, or on some smaller sets of books. So Follett had that, but they were kind of expensive. So I decided to do a Donors Choose grant. So my grant was Manga, growing our manga collection. And you'll see it was kind of a big grant. And when funded, it was over $1,000. I had a lot of great support from my community. And I made the plug about how this is really playing to our students' assets. It's helping them become more proficient in other ways of reading, because these are just such high interest topics. So I did get the funding, and it was super exciting when my packages started coming in. And here's the cart where I'm like prepping up my first few that came in. The drawback to doing it this way is that a lot of my collection is paperback, and I had to spend a significant amount of time covering. I buy the plastic film and was covering them so they'd last a little bit longer. But it was worth it. And now I have a budget where I'm including it. I'm always reading that column in School Library Journal. I am looking to see, oh, are there more issues of this popular one coming out? Like, I need to buy some more Demon Slayer. It's usually popular. Sometimes they get lost. I'm sure nobody else experiences that. Nobody has children walk off with books and never return them. I always kind of view it as like, well, that kid's got a book that they're going to read and enjoy now. It's fine. So I'm using Follett now, and they do have a pretty good collection. I also get donated. Like, I got a box one day from some folks in the neighborhood, and it had these Mega Tokyo books in it that are shown here. And so, I'm going and looking them up on Tidal Wave to see, oh, are these middle school appropriate? Checking out that Manga in Library's website to see what the scoop is on this series. So I added that. One Piece, I actually bought that one. I was doing there's an independent bookstore crawl up here around Thanksgiving, and we're lucky to have just a ton of independent bookstores, and they had a sale. And so I was like, okay, well, I'll grab a One Piece volume 1, 2, 3 for my students. That's one of my most popular and most requested titles, probably because of the Netflix show, which I did watch. I have not read the manga, but I have watched the show, so I know what kids are talking about when they talk about Monkey Luffy. So and then Scholastic, I do Scholastic flyers with my kids. I don't do the book fairs, but I do the flyers, and they usually have some manga. So you'll see here in this box, like, I've got the next 2 One Piece in a series that I'd gotten the first one a while back, and there's a Haikyuu, which is another, and then No Such Thing as Perfect. That's a little that's a non-typical sized manga actually there as well. So now I'm getting consistently more manga into the collection once we got that little jump start with our Donors Choose grant. So here's just a little flash of all the stuff. So once I decided, okay, I found some manga I want, I started purchasing it. I actually really wanted to have some fun with the students around manga and celebrate getting the grant funded, having these great new books. And so we did Manga Day, and students signed up. We had all our new books out. The kids had little clipboards with wish lists where they got to rank the ones they were most interested in reading. Because the way I do these things is I have a lunch and learn, and our lunch times are kind of staggered. And so I didn't want like my 6th graders to come in and preview all the manga and check them all out. And by the time the 8th graders came in for lunch, I didn't have anything left, right? So they came in, they previewed it, they made their wish list, and I promised that everyone would get a title off of their wish list after we got together. But we also did like some Japanese snacks, and I had a little origami station, and I played a couple of videos for them. One that was more about like manga as an art form, and one where a manga artist actually walked students how to draw some manga characters. So I had a bunch of kids also sitting down and drawing manga characters. So here you'll see, like, I spent some time after I got all those books covered in plastic I looked up the books, found a little summary online. So those white sheets of paper on the table are just little laminated summaries, like what's this series about? So the kids can pick that up and just get an idea. And you'll see the kid in the upper right photo, he has the clipboard with one of the wish lists. Um, and I still have all of those summaries. I keep them in a notebook on the manga shelf. So if a kid wants to kind of read up on what a series is about as they're picking, that's available to them. And then I also have what I kind of thought of as like some manga adjacent books that I highlighted in that. And when we got done, I had a hold cart. This is my hold cart where students come and pick up books they put on hold or books they've requested while I was out, and they can come and get it here. And so I had a full hold cart of books for students, and everyone did, in fact, get one of their top three choices. I like went through and made sure everybody got something. And these were here for them to check out and be the first to read our new manga collection. So that day was a lot of fun. I had wanted to do another manga day this year, and it's just been kind of a weird year for me. So we haven't done it, but I will definitely have it on my calendar to do one next year. We will absolutely be doing a manga and maybe pulling in some anime as well too next year. So that really did get the kids excited. And now my manga lives in the front of my library. This is my front entrance. We've been doing some digital citizenship stuff. So excuse all my posters with stickies and all. My students have been making these as we talk about. So it's fun, but it's not quite as pretty and tidy as it usually looks. But our manga is just front and center here when students come into the library. And we do have a number of series now, a wide range of types, some that appeal to girls, some that appeal to boys, some that appeal to everybody. And I like to have those up front because they are such high interest novels. It really draws the kids in. And I'll say, like, this year when we had our rising sixth graders come tour the campus, I heard a lot when they were coming, oh, there's when they came in. So they were very excited about getting that. And then I'm also promoting, I did get, here's the What is Manga poster, the new book that you can get from ALA on promoting manga with teens. The graphic at the top is actually from the cover of that book. But this is just a great poster that talks kids through how to read manga. You start at what we think of as the back of the book, and you read right to left, and there are matching bookmarks for this too that I have, but I'm holding on to until I do my next manga day. So really, continuing to promote it with students. And this section has pretty steady circulation. I have some devoted manga readers. I have some teachers who've actually branched out and read some manga because it's just right front and center there. So that's been kind of fun too. Now, manga can be, oh, I went the wrong direction. Let's go back. I wanted to talk a second about organizing manga because I mean everybody does their own thing in their system and in their library has their own system. I will say that my library is somewhat genreified. Our fiction is all genre labeled, but it's all on the shelf together. Like it's not separated out like a bookstore, but you can easily go in and find like, mysteries because they have a red label that goes over the spine label and things like that. My nonfiction is not genreified, but I do pull graphic novels out. We talk about that a lot with students about how like those are formats, not genres. And it's a little misleading because they all have a little light purple label. And so you might think they're all the same, but they're really not. They're different. We talk about that when we do talk about genres early in the year. But manga, I do keep up near my graphic novels. It's kind of that picture you saw, if you turn to the right, you would see the graphic novels all off to the right. Also up at the front because everybody wants them and I can keep an eye on them up there. But with the manga, this was back when I first put the collection on the shelf, and you can see I had less then. Now I have 8 shelves like this instead of 4. And I just did them, I did Dewey and alphabetical by author's last name. And we tried that for a little bit. But as the collection has grown and in talking with students about how they look for manga, we switched it up and it's now alphabetical by series. So we realized like my students aren't super, I mean, some of them are, the ones who are like mega fans are, but most of them, even the ones that like read a fair bit of manga, they don't really know the authors and illustrators, right? They're not coming in looking for so and so's latest series. They're coming in looking for One Piece or Demon Slayer or, you know, Fruits Basket, right? That's what they're coming in looking for. So I've switched them. And these are kind of some composite photos, but this is like my front side. So we start over here with like, I don't know, I can't, I think the first one's an Avalon or something, this ancient Magus bride, and then it goes on through alphabetical. So this seems to be working pretty well, helps the kids find these. We've had some fun new additions too. Like I have like a manga version of Othello and a manga version of Edgar Allan Poe tales. And the kids kind of find those as they're browsing through the series. So it's kind of nice for them to find those little one-off ones. And I also keep some what I think of as manga adjacent books in that section with the manga. So there are some how to draw manga books there that could live somewhere else, but they live there. I keep a bin of origami books there. You'll see we have the Otaku Japan and the Otaku Food. Kids love to look at those. They're super great visual books too. I just had a kid check out the Otaku Food one today, and he's like, I'll probably bring it back tomorrow. And I'm like, that's fine. You can keep it for 2 weeks, you know? And he's like, no, I just want to look at it. I'm like, okay, that's fine. But I keep those there. And I just got a couple of them aren't even graphic format. Like one recently I got a collection of like scary Japanese folk tales. So I put that out with the manga and it's already been checked out twice. I put there's a little collection that or a little book that the cover looks very manga and it's based on anime and manga, but it's just a little like short story romance thing. So super appealing to the kids. So I would say now this section of my library is highly visited. The kids love it. I still don't read a ton of manga. I read a ton of graphic novels, and I have a few manga on my kind of to read list that I think might come home with me. The series might come home with me over the summer when I have some time to really sit down and read them. Because there are some really just fun ones. There's one about music that I want to read. But that's it. That's how I ended up with my manga collection. And I am happy to answer any questions. Maybe I'll stop screen sharing.
I love it, Sherry. I mean, it's such good stuff. I got a little braver with manga, but I need to get more brave. One of the things that fascinates me, and I don't know if it's just our group, so I'd be love to hear your take, is I think initially I thought it would be like my graphic novel kids would now read manga or vice versa. And that isn't really how it is. I have some really strong readers who also love the manga, so they'll get that big, thick YA book out from the sort of the you know the harder reads, and then they'll get a couple of manga as well. Is that something that you're seeing as well?
Yeah, I do see that. I don't, I mean, I would say almost all my kids love to read graphic novels, but it's a little subset of them that really love to read the manga. But I will tell you one thing that I have found is really interesting. Like, again, working with those asset-based dispositions and serving all the kids where their strengths are, I have found that a lot of, I do a reading time every week on Fridays with our regional classrooms. So our kids who are in special education, and they love. And I'm not sure if it's just because, you know, they're high interest and cool and kind of different, you know. Some of those kids, I mean, I think definitely think differently, right? And think visually, and they get a kick out of the books, but it circulates super well with those students. And I love that. I love that they're finding something that really engages them. And I think kind of has the cachet of being like a popular thing to read, right? But yes, a lot of my really advanced readers too love the manga. It's like a brain break, but not, because you do have to remember to read it backwards, but it's not
It's
as
not easy.
right. It's not. I found with the one that I read previously, I read Bleach, which is more teen, so I don't have it in my library. But you do kind of get in the flow with it, right? Like once you
Right.
kind of get the hang of it, you get in the flow, and it goes more easily. But yeah, I do find that it's a niche, but a popular niche.
Yeah,
So
and I think it's somewhat akin to graphic novels that also get a bad rap at times, because I think people think
yeah,
graphic novels and they automatically think Big Nate, Wimpy Kid, right? They don't see the depth, like Speak, like
right,
the
right.
mouse, right? There's graphic novels that are very difficult to read. They're not easy low lexile reads at all. And in fact, in some ways they're harder because you actually have to figure it out. You're
Yeah,
not, like I when I was doing a lesson on graphic novels to our sixth graders before they did in ELA, before they did a study of a graphic novel, that's one of the things I talked to them about, is like, you actually, to read this novel correctly, your inference skills have to be far higher because you have no
right.
author giving you the answers. And I
That
found
visual
manga was even
literacy, yeah.
right,
And
absolutely. And I
one of the things I always loved when I was learning about graphic novels, and I've always been a graphic novel fan, but this idea that when you're reading a graphic novel, you not only have to read the words and the pictures, you also have to read the gutters and the spaces in between and the shading differences. Like you have to make a lot of inferences. And I think manga kind of takes that and then takes it even a step further, because most
agreed.
of it was not originally written for an American audience. And so the students are also encountering like a whole new cultural idea, like different cultural norms, different archetypes. Like it's funny, my husband and I, when we were watching One Piece on TV, like we were watching it, we were reading it, but there's this like character in there, and there was another show too that we watched that were like there's a character in here that like seems to fit some archetype that I'm not quite getting, right? And so you have to familiarize yourself with the culture that the book is coming out of too. So I think a lot of kids find that really, really engaging. So
Well, I really appreciate you sharing those links, because that was a huge help for me too when I found the
yeah,
couple of those resources, because um, there are a lot of things out there on the internet where people say they've checked books and say they've done this and say they've done this, but in the climate we're in right now, we want to make sure these are
right.
people who are valid, and we know this is, like, she works with School Library Journal. We know this is a good resource for us. And the other thing
Absolutely.
that I really, yeah, I've got my little notes here. Love the manga day. The one that I really stood out to me, just such a little touch, but is huge, was the addition of the non-manga books that you have, like those Japanese type books. Like I have books on how to do anime and how to, but I've got them in my art section, right?
Right.
So, well, even if I don't permanently move them, there's also an opportunity for a display or for a theme of the
Right.
month or something like that, which I think, like, the couple of books you gave as an example may never have been checked out or
Oh,
rarely seen
absolutely.
if you hadn't put them there. So I
Right.
think, those are those little tweaks to what is done,
Right.
um, that really do make a
Well,
difference.
like I can get like I do have this very small group of students who like cookbooks, right? And they would go, and some of them might find that otaku food book, but they might never check it out, right? And or maybe they would, maybe they would. But when I put it out with the manga books, the kids are like, "Oh, okay, well," and
Connection.
the right, like I'm gonna see this, and maybe I'll see something that ties in with the manga that I love, and it just expands the number of kids. I don't know that that book would have been checked out if it hadn't been up. I mean, it's a cool book. Don't you hate it when you buy books and you're like, oh, these are so cool, and then a while later you look and you're like, ah, it's never circulated, like, right?
Right. And I think so much of it is making that connection. It's we know where the books are, but sometimes I think we forget, the kids may not,
Right,
and making those connections. And sometimes it's as simple as another librarian saying, hey, I put the Japanese cookbook or
right.
the Japanese art book with the manga. Well, those are because some of these kids blow me away with their drawings, and
Yeah.
making those connections, I think, is key. So
Well,
thank you for those and
yeah.
many other great
I was
takeaways.
gonna say too, I have one that's checked out right now. but I got a new one in that's like crocheting. And I'm gonna butcher the name. It's like Anamagure Sweets or something like that. But it's like all these cute little characters from manga and anime
My
that you
gosh,
can
and they love to
crochet. And
crochet.
so like when that comes back, that's gonna live on the manga shelf too. Just a nice little
So
tie-in.
I'm
So
literally
yeah,
writing this down because my kids would go nuts about that. So,
yeah.
well, I first of all, I apologize for all the differences with the times, but
I'm
I
sorry. I'm glad you reached out. We're
that's
like, hey.
okay. And I really appreciate your time. On that note, I'm going to stop the recording. So here's an official thank you to you, and we're going to stop that recording now.
All right.